First question, where were you born?
I was born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Fairfax, Virginia.
South Bend, Indiana.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Camagüey, Cuba.
Lake City, Texas, and I lived there my entire life.
So, what would you say your nationality is?
My nationality is Venezuelan.
I would say Cuban.
Okay. Would you say your nationality is American?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely American.
A nationality, yes.
I think I have to because I was born there.
What year are you?
I am a senior at Florida State University.
I'm a senior.
I'm a sophomore.
I'm a sophomore.
I'm a junior.
I am a junior.
I'm biracial, and I identify distinctly as that. If I'm choosing between black and white, then I'm obviously black.
What race do you identify as?
African American.
Okay.
I am Korean, South Korean, because people love to ask. I identify as half Korean.
You know, when you have to check the boxes, I always put Asian. But if I could check 2 boxes, I'd probably put Asian and white.
Okay.
So I first moved to the United States when I was maybe 6, and I stayed in California until I was 7. So for that small part of my life, I lived in Monterey, California. But for the rest of my life, I've always lived in Caracas.
I lived for the longest in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. I spent a total of 15 years overseas. 5 in Egypt, 10 in Saudi Arabia. I was only in Virginia for maybe 2 years, 2-3 years of my life there.
I moved here when I was 6, so after that, we moved to Miami, which is like Cuba number 2.
The thing about Venezuela is that it's funny because Americans say that America's a melting pot, but it's like, have you been to South America? That's the ultimate melting pot because, well, when I was in Monterey, I had the awesome experience of all the people who were in the master's program with my dad had children, and I got to study with those children. So we were all from different parts of the world. So I got to meet people from like Yugoslavia, and I got to meet Jamaicans who are still my friends till this day. But then in Venezuela, specifically the high school that I went to was very Spain dominated. So a lot of people had like Spanish descendants, or like their grandparents were from Spain. Had a lot of Portuguese descent people. My cousin's family is Italian, so sometimes we would have like a combination of an Italian Christmas and a Venezuelan Christmas. And also like we're basically the Caribbean as well, if you're counting Margarita. Well, Margarita is a Caribbean island, so we have the whole Caribbean culture like intertwined with like the mainland culture. Okay. So we're just like a bunch of people gathered together.
When I lived in Egypt, it was mostly Egyptian people. And when I moved to Saudi Arabia, we were on a corporate camp, which was just full of expatriates, mostly Europeans, Americans, some South African people, but it was mostly international people. But I would say if I was like classify, it was just a bunch of white people.
What is the majority race or culture that you grew up around?
A lot of Latinos, definitely I was definitely surrounded by like Venezuelans, Colombians, and Cubans a lot.
It's interesting because I am from a mixed race family and also mixed religion and everything that comes along with just like 2 completely different cultures. We have a surprisingly large amount of Bengali people. Houston is I think the 4th or some high number of most diverse city in the country. And I think I read somewhere that they have a particularly high amount of Asian immigrants. So there's a lot of Bangladeshi people in our area, a surprisingly large amount for other places I've been. And, but also just cultures similar to mine. There are like a good amount of just South Asian peoples in my area, and then there's a good amount of like Middle Eastern and everything like that, but I would say predominantly white, especially in the areas that I went to school in more of my formative years. When I was in elementary school, though, I went to school in Pasadena Independent School District, which is a predominantly Hispanic school district. So I think something like 90-some-odd% of students are Hispanic. So I grew up actually in that surrounded by that culture a lot.
I just remember this one time I was in class and everyone started saying like, oh, my grandpa's from Spain, or like I have family in Peru, or like I have family somewhere else. And then my friend and I just looked at each other, and I was like, both of my parents are from Venezuela. Like I'm from here, and I don't have any. Yeah, my great grandmother and granddad were from Spain, but like my family is here, and then the next part of their immediate family is also from here. So I'm just like Venezuelan wherever you look. I feel like it influenced me in a way that made me like sort of proud. That just exposed me because I got to know their cultures while still us living in our own like community. My experience with white people has been what I expected it to be. I've surprisingly found a lot of people who are very engaged into getting to know my culture. So they're like asking me a bunch of questions, and they're like so intrigued about it. But at the same time, they ask me so many questions because they don't know anything about me, or they don't know anything about my culture. They don't know anything about like what other white Hispanic people call as their heritage.
I certainly have never been or felt discriminated against or neglected because of the way that I look. People are curious, but I mean, that's it, because they want to know what I am. And I've been happy to have really good relationships with white people and black people and just pretty much everyone. I kind of like to think that I float between racial identities that way. And maybe my lack of knowledge about the cultural intricacies that are going on at FSU is because that I haven't spent that much time looking at it.
A lot of ignorance at some instances, but I definitely see the potential and like the excitement for someone different to like be involved in their school. That's most of the part, but I have encountered some people that are like, why are you here? Like, how'd you get accepted to go here and stuff like that. So, I guess sometimes the good outweighs the bad, but the bad is just like very much present. I've definitely felt comfortable and welcome through the Center for Global Engagement. I also came with my own clan from Panama, so I always had like a safe place to go to. But then I was like, I have to like branch out. I can't just hang out with Panamanians. So I kind of branched out, and then when I started to branch out, then I had like some good interactions, and like people are always like excited to like know that I'm from Venezuela. But some people are like, oh, okay, cool, like, good for you, I guess. Which is like a good response as well, because then I'm not like an alien. That's like the legal name that I give myself, because like I'm an alien. So it's like saying, oh, I'm a Leo. Like, it's like, so what? So
it's really nice to have that connection when I meet someone who was also born there, because then you know that they know my struggle. Like, you know what it's like to come to this country and not know English, and like spent years like not understanding like your classes. You go through ESOL. Like, it's nice to have that, like there's an immediate connection there. And with like just Cubans in general, it's just such a blast. Like, being around them is so fun because they understand your culture. We like to do some of the same things. I get to speak Spanish around them, and they'll understand.
The moment I find out that someone is Venezuelan, I'm like, hi, me too. Like, yay, let's be friends.
With like other minorities, it's still great.
I definitely feel inherently more freely when I'm around people of color or like minorities, because I don't know, I just do.
Because I'm like, I think we all share that same struggle, so we are able to identify with each other. But I mean, my struggle is very different from the struggle of like a black person, so we're definitely like, there are things I'm not gonna understand, or like I'm not gonna say like, oh yeah, I get it, I've been through it too. No, I haven't, obviously. So
but if it's a white person, and this white person is really cool, and it's really chill, and it's really welcoming, and it's like, oh, I see beyond color, or like, oh, I see beyond your race, then I'm like, yeah, it's cool, let's hang out.
White people kind of scare me, truly. But it's different. It's a different atmosphere. Not all people are the same, and not all minorities are the same.
You know, you
so.
see your skin color and you see other people's skin, and you don't think like you see it and you recognize it, but you don't think that they have different skin than you. Like, you know, it's like it's all kind of like the same. Like, you have knees, I have knees. I saw the differences between me and other Black people, and I struggle with that a lot. Like, I would like make these generalizations about like Black people because it would make me feel safer in like this white community. I make certain jokes like that may like play on their whiteness, but I do like make certain jokes and you have to assimilate into that culture. And my voice changes too, and when I talk around Black people, it changes too. I know I say Ghana, Finna, and being called an Oreo by like other Black kids.
The joke that's aimed at me a lot is I'm the whitest Black person that people know. So I think that has a lot to say about the way or the circumstances in which I grew up. Yeah, that's why I would like to say that I'm biracial, because to really subscribe to a white-based culture or an African-American culture would be a little inaccurate. You know, I don't want to pretend to a culture that I don't really connect with.
Another problem with our culture is that, like, there isn't enough differentiation. Like, all of Asia is so different, and it's all grouped into one, which is something I actually have been exploring, like, in the realm of theater, like, what it means to be Asian American. Because people don't think of that as
any Indian culture.
Yeah. And then also because a lot of Indian culture has been grouped with Middle Eastern culture just because of Orientalism and the way that the West views things, and also for religious reasons and ethnic reasons. So a lot of the Middle East has been grouped. So like that's why we have movies like Aladdin, where the culture is a complete just mix.
If I were in a group of people of all white people, I'd be like, wow, I'm the only Hispanic here, or like I'm the only Latin person here. If I was in a group of minorities, I'd be like, look at all this diversity, hell yeah. And then if I'm with a Venezuelan, I'm like, do you want to go back? And they'll be like, yeah.
Market Wednesday is always just full of Black people. So that's a very distinct moment of cultural awareness for me. Because yeah, you see like white people everywhere, but then like a whole bunch of Black people in one place has a very different flavor to it than normal.
The biggest thing, like, being raised around white people is like you start to associate like Black people with bad, you know, like Black is bad, white is good.
Like, I have gotten like conditioned just like any other white kid mostly, except I get the experience of being looked at differently. Someone would call me out as like, every time I was identified, it was always just like the new Asian girl, or like that Asian girl, or like the Asian girl in this class. And I just like, it became something that I was like, I detested. Like, I hated hearing people just say like, oh, it's like the Asian one. Because it was just like, I wanted to be known for something other than just what was face value, like straight up. And it was just frustrating. And I don't know, like, I still find it frustrating today, because I just want people to know that there's more. Like, you know, like,
yeah.
And I think that I can have pride in it and know, like, yes, like, I am like really proud of my ethnic identity, and I like want to invest in it more. I just got this tattoo.
Ooh.
And it's the character Han, and it's like a really like it's in both of my names, Hanul and Hanya, and it kind of just expresses like this overall feeling of oppression that Koreans felt after the war, and like feeling so much resentment in their oppression and in the injustices they faced, but like feeling hope for better circumstances, better like quality of life in general.
I think as a kid, I didn't really think about it, and as I'm growing up, I'm identifying more as Asian just because I recognize how other people see me, and how a lot of the people I grew up with who were white never saw me as like part of that group. So
so I'm gonna give you some quick statistics of FSU. These were taken, I believe, in 2016, but based on my time here, I haven't seen any difference much.
Right.
So there are 100 Native American students, which makes up 0.23% of the school. Just over 1,000 Asian students, making up 2.44%, 3,500 Black students, making up 8.36%, 7,400 Hispanic students, making up 17.70%, and 25,400 29, yeah, white students, making up 60.30%.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So,
Do you feel that you are underrepresented?
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I've honestly always felt so apart from both the black and the white community that to say that I'm underrepresented means that there's someone underrepresenting like one singular human being.
You expect it, right? Like, because it's like a predominantly white institution.
Mm-hmm.
With this many people in one place, there's inevitably going to be issues of racial inequality.
True diversity and how they always talk about more initiatives and you know, they advertise like that part of it. They advertise attempting to be diverse and trying to be diverse, but true diversity doesn't look like that big of a disparity, you know.
I feel even underrepresented in my classrooms, like just my regular like general ed classes. Like I look around me and like everyone is white. Or I took a creative writing class my freshman year, and I was like the only person of color in the class. And of course, we had a conversation about cultural appropriation and writing, and just the most problematic things were said. And just you feel so alone and in that situation because like no one is backing you up, and you don't really know how to react. You know, like you're so, at least me, like I was so uncomfortable and in shock, and it's just terrible.
I feel underrepresented as a Hispanic who was born and raised in a Latin American country, because it's still something I'm struggling to figure out why I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it. And I feel like, especially with all the BuzzFeed videos, and especially with like, I don't know how to phrase this, but like there's some American Hispanic people that are like, oh, when I go back home, or like when I go to my parents' home, people make fun of me because I don't know Spanish, or like I'm an American to them. And it's something that I learned in Precious Stones, and it's something that, you know, that sense, some people don't have that sense of belonging. But I feel underrepresented because then it's like you're taking advantage of my culture. Like, just because it's the same thing that happened to me when like people would say like, oh, my parents are from Spain, but you're Venezuelan. You know, like you were born here, you were raised here. So this is my struggle. It's like, I feel like it's the way you go about showing your heritage. It's the way you go about presenting yourself through it. Because some people that one of their parents is Latin, they like somewhat exploit the culture because they want to be different. Because it's like they don't want to be white, they want to be different from the norm. And it's like, you know, like if you're gonna embrace it, like embrace it like rightfully. They just pick and choose whatever they want from it. They just take the fun parts of it. It's like take like Dia de los Muertos here in the States. It's like, or Cinco de Mayo. It's like, bitch, like no, that's not what it's about. No. Ugh. You don't get to pick and choose which parts of Mexico you're proud of. It's like you're gonna embrace the Mexican culture and you're gonna say that you are Mexican, or that you have Mexican descent, and like fucking own all of it and like love all of it. Don't just celebrate Mexico one day and then talk Mexico another. So my inner struggle is that I could say the phrase that I'm more Latin than you are because I was born there is wrong, but at the same time, it's like if you wanna like identify with my own culture, then pay it justice. Like, don't pick and choose what you want from it, because then it's disrespectful to me and it's disrespectful to your own heritage.
But do you feel more comfortable with your own people?
Sometimes yes and sometimes no, because I mean, I guess it depends on the situation. If I'm around minorities, there's this sort of like freedom because we're all like hating on white people, but at the same time, I love being in an international setting. I was in DC last summer and everyone was there was international, and I was like, yes. I don't know why. I just embrace other cultures.
International how?
Like there was one girl that was from Vietnam. It was an internship. Like there was one girl that was from Vietnam. Like 5 people obviously were white because the white are the majority. Then there was like 3 other girls that were from Puerto Rico. My boss was Mexican. My 2 other bosses were Colombian. Another girl was from Great Britain, and another girl was from Spain, and we all sat around and had lunch every day, and we all like talked about our cultures, and we talked about our differences and our similarities, and we talked about food. So I love being in a cultural setting where there's people from all around the world. I don't know why, it just feels really great.
Yeah, I definitely try to sort of surround myself with a more diverse group, because when I don't do that, I feel like I'm isolating a big part of myself. Like, I get uncomfortable sometimes whenever certain things are said around me or in public, because I know that they will not be perceived the same way I would be perceived if I said the same thing.
I mean, I haven't had that many. I haven't had that many black friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for whatever reason, I just haven't been around black people for that extended period of time. Or if I didn't go to St. Lucia, we were like in the whitest white part of America all the time. So maybe I do feel a bit of a disconnect there.
And when I was living with my grandma, I went to a Korean church, and I got bullied by the other Korean kids. Like, just because I don't hang out with Asians, it doesn't make me less Asian.
I got it kind of from both sides. My friends would say, when I said I wanted like a certain role in a play or something, they would say like, oh, you know, you can't do that role. And I'd be like, why not? And they'd be like, well, you're not white enough. Like, you know, this or that or the other, which made no sense to me, because the characters were never dependent on race, but for some reason in their minds, a leading character couldn't be, you know, was by default a white person and couldn't be played by anybody that they didn't see as fitting into that idea of what whiteness should look like. But I also got it from the other side. I remember because I felt particularly ostracized by like my white friends and things, I tried to lean more into my heritage, and I became really into like doing things with my groups of friends who were like, we just say like we're brown, so like with other brown people. And I kind of threw myself into that, and I was trying really hard to be part of that community. And then I remember one of my dad's friend's kids who I went to school with, who I thought I was friends with, he made some joke and was like, oh, she's a blonde hair, she's a half-blood. And so, which was actually really derogatory, which I didn't realize at the time. But that really that just changed my whole, I don't know, way I was looking at it, because I just felt really like stuck in the middle. Like I didn't have anywhere to go. Like I didn't really belong in either group.
I think my family reflects my cultural identity pretty well. Dad is white, mom is black. I have two older brothers who are a mix of God knows what. So I don't think you could pigeonhole my family as to having one set culture or anything like that. So we don't really fit in ethnically in every situation, but we're fine with that.
Oh my God, I'm trying to find research on Latin America, and I can't, because there's no one's interested. I'm trying to find research and plays and stuff that revolved around South America, and there's no, like, why not?
The theater program is very white, and the shows that we put on are very white and very male. So it's just, it feels like my story isn't the story that is being told. So
I think it's kind of sad that I've gone through my entire schooling up until now and haven't met another person here from the same background as me. Maybe not another Bengali student, but at least another South Asian student, like someone from India, Pakistan, something like that. And I haven't met a single one since I've been here.
Because there's no black people in the school of theater. And like on campus, you know, like I shouldn't be the only black person in a room.
Do you feel that you perform in your everyday life?
Yeah, I think you have to, it happens a lot in like professional atmospheres, I feel like. Like I feel like I'm a server at a restaurant, and I feel like that's a full-on performance. You know, you put on a good face, you have to deal with terrible customers, and like you still have to smile through it and laugh at their jokes, though they're not funny. So yeah, I definitely think it's a performance. And also the way you interact with different people is different. So there's definitely like a performance quality in that. It's also like a fear thing where in like big classes, there's like so many people, and most of the people in those classes are white, so it's just like that scary thing of like, oh, if I say I'm Latina, or if I say something about my culture, am I gonna be like attacked, or you know, someone's gonna make a racist remark, and that's the scary thing, where like you don't know what people are gonna do.
I have 3 different types of people that I am. There's 3 different types of me. Like there's one when I'm with my parents, where I'm very like quiet. Then there's like a professional side of me that's like, if I'm gonna talk to a professor, or if I'm gonna talk when I'm in a school setting, like you need to perform that you are professional. And then there's this type of me that I have when I interact with my dog. There's certain situations in life where you have to put up this front, like this face of how you want people to see you. So unfortunately, this world revolves around looks, and this world revolves around how people perceive you. You kind of have to act the way people want you to act.
Around my friends in school theater, I feel expected to be a certain, like a black in a certain way, and then around my teachers in school theater, I kind of feel expected to be black in like a different way, and then in school theater as a whole, and like FSU as a whole, I feel minimized and kind of like pressured to perform in a certain way because of the shows that they have going on and the roles that like I want to get into. You know, I can't, like, there's no black roles. Like, I like think about like where those expectations come from, the expectation of performativity.
I definitely do a lot of like code switching, just when I'm talking to like family and things, and even family that's my own age, but from that culture. I guess coming to college, I don't know, it's different because sometimes I can pass. I don't even know if it's conscious or not, but I definitely do things to kind of fit in and like be more white or whatever. Definitely affects the way that I talk, the things that I talk about. It definitely affects the way that I talk and interact with people, for sure. And just how conscious I am of the things that I say, or like the way that I'm acting, or just the way that I know people will perceive me.
I hate the whole like system, you know, like I hate the racist system, which is ruled by white people. So that's always interesting. And there's definitely like everyone carries themselves a different way. I think I carry myself a different way around white people. Even more like I feel like when I'm around white people, again, I have to like preach that I'm Latina. Like I have to like make it known, because I don't want people to just assume I'm one of them, or to like make conjectures based on their assumptions.
Do you live your daily life unaffected or trying to be unaffected by your race?
No, I'm always affected by my race.
It's like, talking about like my race and my background. I do feel sometimes I'm expected to perform in a certain way around certain people, or I'm expected to say certain things or do certain things when talking about like a specific topic. So when slavery comes up in class, or like when we talk about racism or appropriation, every head kind of give like a little side eye, like, what you gotta say, Lydia? And I'm like, I kind of feel expected to have these opinions and expected to be the woke friend kind of thing. Hashtag queen, yes, strong black queen, all these things. Black girl magic. I feel more expected to be around people. I feel people in the school of theater, theater majors, artists, I feel expected to be those things.
It has become harder to live unaffected by it because of how present race is in our culture now, which is good and bad. It's good in the sense that it's great that platforms are emerging for people like me to have a voice, but it's also bad in the sense that it is such a heated, and it's the whole topic of race is filled with such like vitriol and stuff that I feel like no matter what I identify with, I'm sort of putting a target on my back.
I feel like I have to like preach like that I'm Latina, like because there's such a like lack of it, or like so misrepresented or underrepresented. So I feel like I constantly have to be like, oh, I'm Latina and I'm proud, and like this is what makes us Latinos. So it's really interesting.
Okay.
It feels like a constant fight to be here and to like get opportunities at Florida State. It's so different, and our upbringings are different, and our beliefs are different. So no, I never like really experienced racism until I got to Tallahassee, I think.
Really?
Which is like really scary.
I always have this weight on my shoulders. I don't know how to say this without getting emotional. There's privilege in being an American citizen. Do not understand how much easier my life would be if I was just an American citizen. And at this point, I don't want to fucking be one, because I don't, like, America's making it so hard for me just to stay for a little while. Like, I'm graduating in December, and I already am thinking about my OPT, and I'm already thinking, like, I need to start applying for things, otherwise I'm going to get kicked out of the country. I'm applying to be a U.S. resident right now. My dad put in that application when I was a freshman in college, and I'm about to graduate in a couple months, and just now they answered. They don't have the ongoing fear of, oh my God, did I bring my passport with me to this club? Or like, do I have a copy of my passport? Or every time I leave the country, I have to have my F1, because if I don't have my F1, I'm not going to be welcomed back into this country. I'm going to have to pay a fine, a $2,000 fine, getting a freaking job. Most of the people in this campus will never know the struggle, and will never know the stress, and will never know the amount of fear and of like uneasiness that goes into your daily life.
A lot of people who are not in like minority groups, whether that be like sexuality, whatever, race, you know, anything, gender, any of that. If you're not part of some sort of minority group, it's harder for you to understand why it is so hard to be the person that everyone's bringing their questions to. You know, it's hard whenever people are bringing you all the questions about how can we best do this for your race, or this for your culture, or this for whatever, and you're like, I just want to take a nap. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to do my homework. I don't know. Like, I have my own things that I'm worried about, and while I would love to have a discussion of like representation with you, at the same time it's like you kind of have to take some of the burden of educating yourself on your own.
I think it's hard in Tallahassee at FSU to be unaffected by your race. I kudos to whoever like has done it. Like, wow, you're living the life.
Right.
I think it's really hard. I think we all try to be. I think we all are like, it shouldn't have to matter. We shouldn't have to struggle. But at the same time, saying like, oh, we're trying to not be affected by our race, like, I feel like it's minimizing our struggle. We have to like talk about it in order for people to remember, like, no, like, oppression is definitely a thing, and we're being oppressed by white people. So that's the important thing. Like, us not speaking about it and trying to go about our daily lives without talking about it is just making people forget it, or making people think that everything is fine now and that racism doesn't exist. Like, we got over that. Slavery, dark times, never again. You know, it's definitely like, we have to talk about it, because otherwise like people forget, or just think like, oh yeah, all is forgiven, we're all fine. So,
do you emphasize your race to prove a point, to be like, I'm here too?
Yeah,
it's definitely very much a political move. I think it's where it's like, if I don't say it and talk about it, then no one's gonna say it or talk about it. So I feel like the pressure is on me to be the one to speak about it and make art about it, and like constantly like state that I'm Latina, because otherwise we're not going to talk about Latinx culture at all, or we're going to underrepresent it or misrepresent it. So just about like carrying myself a certain way and saying like I'm Latina and I'm this way. Just the fact that like we have to constantly fight that fight is hard, and but also it's important.
You know? And it's like they won't say it, and I try to think against it, but it's there. It's there when they look at you. Like there's automatically a box that they put you into, and
like a lot of people are more interested in my background when they think I'm Hispanic than when they know that I'm South Asian. So I definitely find myself playing into what I think other people expect from me, and a lot of times that means not embracing my culture as much as I wish I could, or I wish that I would.
I think people are more curious about the places that I've come from and those interactions I've had rather than my actual race. They'd be more interested in if I was Islamic or the kind of conversations I've had with Islamic people and my relationship with them than they are about like, oh, what are you exactly? How does that make you feel? Or like, what part of the culture do you subscribe to? I'm more of a product of the places that I've lived in and the people I met there than any distinct sense of a racial identity or a national identity or now a religious identity.
because they have like all these things inside of me. I have a mind and a heart and a soul, and I think these things, and you know, and like I want to grow and learn and all these things like going on inside of me, other identities that contribute to who I am as a person. And I guess it's just about understanding that like you're so much more than your skin tone, and you're so much more than people that you were raised around. You know, it greatly influences who you are.
Right.
Right. It determines your experiences. People will look at me and always think a certain thing.
Right.
You know, I'll always see a certain thing. But just know that that doesn't change the inner. You know, but being yourself 100% of the time.
Do you feel that you have to hide or minimize how you identify due to the college environment?
No.
No?
Not at all. No.
Okay.
Because if someone doesn't like me because of my heritage, then they're a terrible person.
I do try to let people know that I'm here and I won't be moved. If they have a problem with my blackness, then I will not be budged. I pay money to go here, just like anyone else, you know. And so, and I've worked hard. I fought for my place here. I've earned it, and I'm staying. So if you have a problem, then you can leave.
You know, it wasn't until college that I really experienced that, you know, how much my face and my ethnic identity matters to casting. My experiences as an actress have only lit a fire under my ass to change the narrative of Asians and Asian women specifically, because there's a lot of exotification, there's a lot of fetishization, and just important to be seen as like a human. And I would much rather, like, in my most like prioritized efforts of activism, lift up minorities who are, rather than like me, classified as responsible, smart, and like hardworking, the ones that are classified as violent, like thugs. Because it's great to be put on stage and be identified as an Asian, but if it's under the same gaze that we've been looking at Asians like in theater, then I don't want to participate. So I would just love to stop seeing minorities being put in a box on stages. If you don't know how to tell this story, is it your story to tell?